It's 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. We're in East London and we're following a sofa.
The tracker's telling me it's in the building, but it could be inaccurate.
There's definitely fly-tipped waste around here.
We need to keep a low profile. The sofa's with two men we suspect are linked to a criminal group that fly tip all over the country.
Somewhere in one of these
Could be in
halls.
one of those lockups.
Or the lockups, yeah.
Eventually, we spot it.
Reverse a bit. That's our sofa.
That is the sofa, isn't it?
We quickly check for our GPS tracker and ultraviolet markings.
The tracker, I can feel underneath where we've hid it.
This sofa is just one of millions of items fly-tipped across the UK. It's been ditched by criminals scamming us for easy cash.
I'm wondering if they're watching us, but I'm just being paranoid.
We discover new information about how criminal organisations are orchestrating nationwide fly tipping.
We want to know how you're connected and who's paying for all this advertising on Gumtree.
The system is not working. You've got 1 million reported fly tipping incidents. If they don't start stamping down on it, it's going to grow even more.
We exclusively reveal satellite analysis that points to thousands of potentially illegal waste sites across the UK.
It's a big problem. It's not just a fridge and a ditch here and there. There are large illegal waste sites causing pollution, contamination of the environment.
We hear from whistleblowers who raise questions about the operations of a major waste company that's controversially donated hundreds of thousands of pounds to Wales's First Minister.
I don't think the public would be very happy if they knew that they're going through all the process of separating and sorting their own recycling and their own waste, and that they find out that it's just been dumped back at landfill.
And we discover how waste can make organised crime gangs more money than drugs.
It's organised crime, and for them, this is easy money.
Large-scale fly tipping increased by 13% last year.
I'm going to report you to the council for fly tipping.
But these aren't one-off incidents. Dispatches has been told that organised crime is behind Britain's fly tipping epidemic. We're investigating what we suspect are the criminal networks scamming us all to make millions. Our team and our sofa first got together in South London. This is a sting operation to see if our waste ends up in legal landfills or on our streets. Producer Celia Watson is in charge of fitting and monitoring the GPS trackers. I'm the one with the camera. My name's Emily Keane.
So what are you thinking with this tracker?
They're essentially like a little mini phone. They've got a SIM card in them, and it'll send text messages, signal messages with the GPS from the satellite when it's on the move. So I'm going to call this mattress, rename it mattress. I'll get a text message or a message on my app on my phone. Yeah, I think that's pretty solid.
Our research team went on Gumtree and found 6,600 adverts for waste removal. Loads of different companies all across the country. It's illegal for waste removal companies to operate unless they're registered with the Environment Agency and have a licence. They can't use commercial tips without one. But when we looked, less than 20% of the adverts appeared to be posted by companies with a licence.
Without the appropriate licences, then nobody should be charging somebody to handle their waste.
This is Scott Butler. He runs an electrical waste charity. He suspects these operators are secretly connected.
When you start digging behind them, similarities in numbers, similarities in email addresses, similarities sometimes in addresses. Everything is suggesting that it's a little bit more organised.
So, is Scott right? We ran software designed to spot connections. Around half of the adverts from what seemed to be different unlicensed companies were linked, pointing to two organised criminal networks, not just one or two rogue traders. We called up companies in these networks and asked them to pick up our waste. They charged us as if they'd take it to a proper waste tip. Sam is filming the collections covertly, and the waste will be tracked so we can see where it goes.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
The first company we called sent someone else from their network to move our mattress and some building waste.
Is it going?
Yeah, we'll need to take that. Shall I bring a bag out?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you want me to help you get this on there?
It's okay.
You sure?
So heavy, everything.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
The next company we rang picked up our sofa and some rubble.
Are you all right with this sofa? Yeah. I just didn't know where to take it. Do you do all over London then?
Yeah, we cover all over London, yeah.
All over UK.
Really?
Yeah, we go down Newcastle.
So
The third company we called sent someone else, this time to pick up an additional mattress and more rubble.
who are they on the phone? Are they not part of yours?
I knocked them out when you get trouble booking.
Right, okay.
That's so nice.
Oh, so then they just get, yeah.
The criminal networks our software identified spent at least £50,000 on Gumtree advertising in the last 2 months alone.
But they spend a lot of money on advertising.
What's their company? Yeah, I know, I saw there's loads on Gumtree.
Yeah, they don't look around.
What's their company then, so I can get in touch with them?
You just get in touch with me.
I will. Was there one call?
I forgot.
All right. All right, thanks. All right, cool.
Then we set up surveillance and started tracking the items.
He's coming back.
Yeah, I've got him. Oh, looks like he's looking in the commercial bin. Celia, he's putting our rubble in the bin.
Wow.
And the plasterboard is going in the bin. And the builder's rubble is going in the bin.
It's so blatant.
Looks like he's laughing about something.
Despite charging us £80 to take our waste to a commercial tip, he fly tips it, half of it in the bins on the street. Someone else will be picking up the tab to dispose of this. It's a familiar story across the country.
Just look at this.
There were over 1 million fly tipping incidents last year.
They'll just dump it absolutely anywhere.
Fewer than 1% were successfully prosecuted.
This is about the worst fly tipping I have seen.
Handling waste without being properly licensed and taking it to the right treatment point and dumping it on the land is a criminal act. So ultimately, if it's organised and it results in a criminal act, it's organised crime.
We tracked one of our mattresses to Croydon.
It was parked up around the corner last night, outside a house, wasn't it?
Yeah, around the corner, and then it moved to this location here. So, and I think we can see one of the removal vans, the company that picked it up. Different vans, but same branding, same company.
Same company.
Yeah. You want to go around?
Yeah.
To see where the tracker is?
It's just in there.
In those bins there.
Yet again, this waste was fly tipped for someone else to pay for.
I can actually see our mattress kind of poking out the top, can you?
Yeah.
And the tracker's showing to being in that
It's
bin
in
right
that
there.
location right there, yeah.
The following day, Celia tracked some bags of rubble we tagged. They hadn't gone to a proper tip, but were dumped at a market in the East End of London. Our sofa ended up fly tipped near here too, in a housing estate. Nearly half of the companies dispatches hired dumped waste illegally. And nearby, we found yet more fly tipping.
That's disgusting. Kitchen units.
There was a mattress on top.
A whole caravan just dumped.
The next morning, we began rounding up our fly-tipped waste.
Yeah, I could do it. Just about, yeah.
We've calculated that just one van picking up waste every day and dumping it could be making over £145,000 in extra illegal profits each year. We wanted to confront the fly tippers. We called and asked them back.
Oh yeah, I called the other day about a waste collection. I've got some other bits to be collected. It was all right to get a quote from you.
We told the first ones to arrive that we'd found the sofa they'd fly tipped.
Where was this? Because we went someone else, our rubbish, another company comes and collects it from us.
So you're saying that you didn't put the sofa by the bin?
No, I didn't.
And the company that fly tipped the rubble on the street bins also denied all knowledge.
So long time that I don't remember.
The one who dumped our mattress in a Halfords bin was next.
You fly tipped that. Someone else happened to pay that?
That was my friend. He lives next door.
Right.
He lives next door to the house, and he's gonna pick it up. And he picked it up.
You picked that up from the bin?
Yes.
You put it in the bin?
No, I put it by the bin, and he's taking it from the bin. He lives next door there.
So he's the one that tips it in the bin?
I put it there. He took it.
And where did
to his house.
We wanted to find out more about the networks controlling these fly tippers.
We're interested in the network. We want to know how you're connected and who's paying for all this advertising on Gumtree.
No one wanted to talk. Groups with lots of vans can rake in millions. So we tracked down numbers for the companies higher up in the chain.
Hi there. A couple of weeks ago, we called you to pick up some waste for us. We paid £120 to dispose of that mattress. But your driver fly tipped the mattress, and I wanted to talk to you about it.
Fly tipped the mattress?
He fly tipped the mattress.
He told us he'd passed the job to someone else. But when we asked more about the network, he wasn't keen to talk.
I'm not talking anymore, sorry.
What checks do you do to ensure that the drivers you outsource to, the companies you outsource to, have the appropriate licenses?
Hang up. That wasn't unusual.
Your company picked up some waste for us, and he's hung up. But do you work with the other companies? Like, how do you all fit together? Hung up.
Eventually, we got someone willing to talk.
I work with a lot of companies, but more than 1,000 drivers, and we pass the jobs one from another.
Would you be able to share the names of those, or like the group, or is there somewhere I can find that network?
So this is why it's a closed group, and we are passing the jobs just through us. WhatsApp, and also we have like an app.
An app? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. What's the app?
I can't tell you this. Anyway, you're not gonna find it.
Okay.
Because it's just a closed group.
It's a closed group on an app?
Yeah.
A secret app?
Yeah.
Our investigation, with just a few phone calls and some GPS trackers, has apparently uncovered a large nationwide network of fly tippers that even has its own app. We contacted the Environment Agency, who were meant to stop organised fly tipping in England. They refused an interview, but sent a statement saying it wasn't easy, but they were working hard to stay one step ahead of the criminals. But with rubbish blighting our streets and countryside, not everyone agrees it's enough. Rachel Hallos is the Vice President of the National Farmers Union. We asked her to survey 620 farmers across England and Wales about fly tipping.
50% of them have experienced a small-scale fly tipping event. Over a quarter of all those surveyed have actually had a large fly tipping incident on their farm.
She says the authorities aren't doing enough and fly tippers are operating without fear of prosecution.
The system is not working. If it was working, we wouldn't have the problem. There is definitely organised crime. I do think it's serious. This is a group of people that have talked about it, that have made a plan, They've got the right vehicles. They've got the drivers of the vehicles. This is large-scale stuff that's going from one place and then tipped elsewhere. And ultimately, it's people that are cheating the system. And they shouldn't get away with it. It really is quite simple in that respect. They should not get away with it.
But fly tipping is only part of our story. We're about to investigate one of the most controversial landfill sites in the country. Dispatches is investigating the waste disposal industry. This time we're not tracking a sofa, but a smell. Our investigation has brought us to the small village of Spittal in Pembrokeshire. This is where Colin and his wife Sue moved about 3 years ago.
I just wanted to be somewhere more rural and more chilled. The beaches are stunning. I've been a rower for many years. There's dolphins that regularly follow us while we're out there, seals.
But for the last year, people living here have been plagued by a foul stench.
It was really quiet, a nice village to live until last year. I think it's about July I first smelt something.
It was an eggy, chemically sulphurous smell. Makes you retch.
Somebody described it as stink bomb on steroids because of the sulphur smell.
It will come into the car, it will come into your home.
It does make you kind of gag sometimes.
Nothing will keep it out.
Your eyes can hurt as well from it.
People were going, what's that? And somebody said, oh, it's the landfill. But we've lived here for, a couple of years now and we'd never smelt it before. To be honest, didn't even know there was a landfill there.
This is the site they're talking about, the Withy Hedge landfill. It's owned by Dawson Environmental, a conglomerate of companies that transport and dispose of waste. The eggy smell is hydrogen sulfide. It's a signal that either the landfill might be taking waste it shouldn't, like plasterboard, or that the site is being mismanaged. Colin and Sue want answers and to know if they're safe in their home.
Council signposted us to Natural Resources Wales, which are the people who regulate the site. So we report Withy Hedge to Natural Resource Wales. Initially we didn't get anything back and nobody was giving us any answers.
The smell kept getting worse.
I decided to set up a Facebook group to do something about it. Within a couple of weeks, we went from just the couple of hundred in Spittal to over 1,000. People going, that's awful. I've never smelt it like that. When is somebody going to do something about this to stop this smell?
We decided to take a closer look at Withy Hedge. Even a mile away, we could smell it. That morning, over 30 lorries arrived. The waste was buried in cells, deep pits lined with clay. That's to stop toxic pollutants leaching into the water table. When they're full, the cells are covered with soil and plastic. Whilst we were filming, we heard gunshots. An insider later told us the site security had tried to shoot down our drone. We wanted to find out what they might be hiding. Dawson Environmental Group is controlled by this man, David Neal. His companies have made millions from waste. He also has a criminal record for dumping waste illegally.
Mr. Neal is a convicted environmental criminal. In 2013, he was convicted of dumping toxic sludge in a sensitive, protected landscape and given a suspended prison sentence. And 4 years later, He was taken back to court because he'd done nothing to remediate the damage that he had caused, and was convicted again and given another suspended prison sentence.
Martin Shipton is a journalist. He's been investigating David Neal's links to the Welsh First Minister, Vaughan Gething.
So, February 2024, I got a tip-off that this man, David Neal, had given money to Vaughan Gething, to his leadership campaign. So there were two donations made by Mr. Neal, one in December 2023 of £100,000, and then the following month, in January of 2024, there was another £100,000, obviously totaling £200,000, which is an absolutely massive amount. It transpired that Mr. Gething had been involved in lobbying on behalf of Mr. Neal's group with the Natural Resources Wales. Mr. Gething remonstrates with the regulator and says, you're being too hard on him, basically, and what you should be doing is letting him trade and everything will be hunky-dory.
Vaughan Gething has defended the donations and denied lobbying. He says that he followed all the rules. He recently lost a vote of no confidence in the Welsh Assembly as a result of the controversy.
I have never, ever made a decision in more than a decade as a minister for personal or financial gain. Never.
Mr. Gething remains Wales First Minister, a post not affected by the general election.
One wonders why it was considered by Mr. Neal as more important to donate £200,000 to a politician who had been acting on his behalf than to actually spend the money on remediating the damage that he has caused and continues to cause to the environment.
Mr. Neal told dispatchers this suggestion is entirely baseless and that Dawson Environmental has spent several £1 million to resolve the issues at Withy Hedge. We've come to the Atlantic Waste Recycling Centre in Cardiff, the heart of David Neal's empire, where waste is sorted. Recycling and waste for incineration is removed. Companies pay tax on anything that goes to landfill at one of two rates. The lower band is £3 a tonne. That's for inert waste, like soil. The higher band for everything else is over £100. We tracked down someone who used to drive lorries for Atlantic. We've been speaking to him over the last 6 months, and he's agreed to talk on camera on condition we obscure his identity.
I started working for Atlantic Recycling in around about 2020. I spent the best part of 2 years there. I'm talking because I believe what they are doing is it's wrong on so many different levels.
The driver told us he'd pick up waste from Neal's subsidiary companies and recycling from Neath Port Talbot Council. It would be taken to the centre to be sorted, but often it wasn't even unloaded.
Some should have gone to local incinerator or at least be taken to a different yard, but it would just all end up in landfill.
He says the waste included materials known to generate hydrogen sulfide. That's the eggy smell.
There'd be plasterboard, at least 3 or 4 loads a week that would have plasterboard inside it. There'd be carpets, tyres, metal girders. Quite regularly you'd see something with blood on it on the back end of your trailer when you're cleaning off the back end to close the doors after you've offloaded. Or there'd be syringes would be stuck in between the slats on the floor of the trailer that you'd have to brush off.
He says the deception at the recycling centre was highly organised and involved 20 to 30 lorries each week.
Your normal day-to-day running you'd come in over the weighbridge, then you'd be topped up or covered with either this fine stuff or a layer of sort of general waste. So it really hides whatever's inside the trailer. And then you drive in up this track, round to the side there, and back out onto the weighbridge. And then that lorry's coming up with a slightly different weight and at a different time as to what it went in. By the time you've gone in and gone through that process, it looks like the waste has actually gone in, been offloaded. I reported it to the regulator when I left there, and as far as I know, nothing happened. I don't think the public would be very happy if they knew that they're going through all the process of separating and sorting their own recycling and their own waste, and then they find out that it's just been dumped in the ground in wetty hedge.
We've uncovered emails which show the NRW is questioning David Neal about the makeup of waste which has left his Atlantic Recycling Centre in Cardiff over the last 5 years. It appears the regulator is investigating whether waste has been miscategorised.
If a site is miscategorising waste as inert rather than standard waste category, they're saving £100 a tonne on everything that comes into the site.
Professor Longhurst specialises in landfill odour and management at Cranfield University.
Now, a typical Arctic lorry will carry between 30 and 40 tonnes. This is thousands of pounds per day that a site can avoid paying. So in a year, that means millions.
Dawson Environmental says it is commonplace for a load to be topped up to make its weight commercially viable. It denies that inappropriate waste has been taken to Withy Hedge or that lorry loads have been systematically, fraudulently altered. The regulations governing landfills aren't just about tax. They're also about protecting workers, local residents and the environment. We found someone who worked at Withy Hedge when our lorry driver was taking waste there. At the time, the company holding the permit was controlled by Potter Waste Management. They sold the company to David Neal and the Dawson Environmental Group in 2022. This worker said he had serious concerns about how Withy Hedge was managed whilst he was there. He's asked us to protect his identity.
On a daily basis, we'd see medical waste coming in. It could be one lorry, it could be 3 lorries. Basically, they'd quarter fill the lorry at the rear, they'd put medical waste in, and then they'd put the other quarter at the front and just hide it. So if you opened the rear doors of the lorry, you would never notice medical waste. I had probably about 15 to 20 photographs of what was on the ground that day when I took the pictures. There was vials of blood, medication, sharps, there was scrubs that were covered in blood, just stuff that should have been incinerated.
He says he showed this evidence to investigators from Natural Resources Wales.
I took pictures to the NRW. I had a meeting with some of the team, which was in 2022. Handed these pictures over to them, and that was the last I've heard from them.
NRW said it has assessed the intelligence submitted in line with their regulatory processes, but asked anyone who has more information about what's happening to contact them without delay. We took our work as evidence to Professor Longhurst.
So these images are genuinely shocking in that you've got direct evidence of hospital waste that are high-risk materials such as blood-giving products, residues of pharmaceuticals, syringes, and you've also got waste mixed in with other forms of waste which should never happen. I've never seen a site, well, certainly not in Europe, that has this mix of materials. This is a real concern. This is a direct health risk.
What motivation might an operator have for taking medical waste like this?
The only motivation is for doing that, for that conduct, is money. And the money to be made is greater as the costs of handling waste increases. Hospital waste is very expensive to process, typically 3 times the cost of normal waste processing. These are materials that should be in a controlled environment. They should never be in the open atmosphere.
We contacted Potter Waste Management. It denied all allegations. We've uncovered another potential reason for the rising stench at Withy Hedge, one that threatens the local environment. on the road back to Withyhedge, one of the most controversial landfill sites in Wales. The site whose stench is plaguing thousands living nearby. We've heard allegations that Withyhedge has taken waste it shouldn't, and we've discovered another possible reason the smell is so bad. It's the leachate, the polluted liquid that drains or leaches from a landfill. It can be toxic and dealing with it is expensive. It's supposed to be stored in tanks on site and then taken to a special treatment plant. But we've heard that Withyhedge is struggling to keep on top of the leachate.
I'm Andrew Phillips. I worked at the Withyhedge landfill site from March 2023 to August 2023. I started as a tipper driver, driving silage trailers full of rubbish. They put me on the leachate tanker after a few weeks, and I was collecting leachate, collected at the bottom of every cell rubbish pile. It was meant to be collected at the bottom and then taken to tanks to be stored, ready to be taken away to be treated. But the tanks couldn't keep up. And basically they make me tip it straight back on top of the cell, or they dig a massive hole around 40 to 60 foot deep and then have me fill it full of leachate and just try and keep the leachate from filling up the tanks.
Respraying leachate can increase the production of hydrogen sulfide. That's the eggy smelling gas that first brought us here. It's another possible factor explaining the stench coming from the landfill site.
It basically causes smells and it's supposed to go into the tanks to be disposed of properly.
If leachate escapes, it can contaminate groundwater, rivers and soil with toxic pollutants. Local campaigner Colin Barnett captured a leak with his drone at the end of last year. We showed this footage to Professor Longhurst.
Whether it's a day of leak or a fortnight or a year, ultimately they are failing to comply with their permit. Uncontrolled release of leachate can have direct impact on rivers. It can harm animals, fish, biota, and also it can harm humans if we're using that river as a tributary for drinking water. This is an urgent priority to deal with.
The regulator, National Resources Wales, has carried out some testing along the Cleddau. It's revealed to us that it believes the landfill is a potential contributor to pollution in the river. Dawson Environmental says the problems with leachate were caused by very bad weather, and additional pumps were installed to resolve the issues. In May, Mr. Neal announced the site would be shut to new waste for 6 weeks. The NRW has told dispatchers that it is gathering information to determine if further enforcement action needs to be taken, and that they have taken action to drive improvements needed, including odour testing in the community. It added that it has a long history of bringing poorly performing sites back into compliance and pursuing successful prosecutions. But in Spittal, the stench continues. Just as this programme was going to air, Public Health Wales revealed results from hydrogen sulfide testing, which showed levels close to the site that can cause headaches, nausea, throat irritation and coughs.
Why is it still going on after 10 months? How do you know it isn't poisoning me, was the question early on. How do you know it's not at a level that it's causing me ill health? From the outset, I've wanted to know exactly what is coming into my house. Anybody would want to know. I've lost count of the number of times we've reported it to the regulator. We all feel annoyed, let down, and frustrated that that kind of crime isn't easier to report and get some kind of resolution.
Dawson Environmental has apologised to the local community for the odour outbreak and says it is confident the issue has been resolved. Withy Hedge is not the only landfill that stinks. One of our sources sent us an internal Environment Agency report. This reveals a national investigation into landfill management. It found companies across the country could be misclassifying waste as non-hazardous to pay a lower rate of tax. Charge customers the full rate, then pocket the difference, making millions by polluting the environment.
The landfill tax was designed to move waste from landfilling it to more recycling. And if you look at the figures, it's actually worked. But what it's also done has fueled this multi-billion-pound corrupt business.
After many years in Parliament, Kevin Jones has just stepped down as an MP. He's campaigned alongside politicians from all the major parties for more to be done about waste crime.
Since it was introduced in 1996, there's not been one single prosecution for landfill tax fraud. The problem with the checks is they're self-policing. That just makes the issue very difficult to enforce and also makes it very difficult for anyone to be clear what's actually going into a site.
The final part of our story takes us to Essex. Dispatchers is investigating lucrative waste sites which operate outside the law with no permits and make enormous profits.
60 of the top organised crime groups in the UK are involved. They'll go where they can actually make easy money, and for them this is easy money.
We're on the M25 and we're heading north.
It was on the left. A mound of rubbish. It looked like a hill.
You need a permit to store waste, but there's nothing registered here. We're going to investigate. Amongst locals, this spot is notorious. The people linked to it have been jailed for arms dealing, others for drugs and car smuggling.
Not sure how much we're going to see.
We launch a drone above the site and then fly it from our car in case we need to make a getaway.
It looks organised. Tyres, I can see plastic, I can see containers. And a van coming in. Which van? The bottom left.
That one?
Yeah. I'm just going to zoom in.
No one appears to be dumping on the mountain, but it looks like someone is loading appliances from a container. In April, the Environment Agency barred access to the dump. But on the site next door, it appeared people were busy transporting and handling waste, even though we couldn't find any record of them having permits from the Environment Agency.
We're definitely unloading something.
This is sort of very legitimacy to any of it.
We want to know how many illegal landfills are operating in plain sight.
The criminal gangs who often run these sites have got quite sophisticated. Often the areas are flat because they bury the waste and then they flatten the waste to get more waste on the site.
This is Professor Ray Harris. Scanning satellite images using AI software, he's been working with regulators across Europe to identify illegal landfill sites. He's looked at the southeast of England for dispatches.
We can look at 100 kilometre by 100 kilometre areas using European Space Agency Sentinel-2 data. Then we take several dates and we use a model, and the model has developed over time, but it now includes artificial intelligence. We use that to try and detect potential landfill sites. We then look at each of those sites in detail using the very high resolution data to see diggers and trucks and containers for waste and that kind of thing. We can typically see where the vegetation has grown above the waste. And then we're also looking for the texture of the image, because when you've got the kind of thing that a man in a van might take away, like fridges, that produces a particular kind of feature on the images, which is speckled or mottled.
His results are staggering.
We found just over 400 which were potential landfill sites, and then we eventually boiled that down to about 50 sites were ones which are really worthy of further investigation.
The 50 sites are in just one part of southeast England. We've established 25 had no permits, and there are questions about whether the rest have the permits they should. We decided to take a look at some of the sites.
It's at a farm landfill site. To be a little bit careful about having the camera out now, maybe. Oh, smells.
Yeah, it does.
Interesting.
There's fly tipping all around the entrance to this site.
Oil-based paint, that's what it is.
You can really smell it.
Wood, plastic and things. Fireworks. Through the fence there's more what looks like innards of cars sort of strewn.
I think this is going to be one for the drone.
And inside we see tyres and construction waste. This site doesn't have a permit to accept or process waste. The authorities might want to ask questions. Again and again we found sites that appeared to have no permits. The Environment Agency told us that to combat waste crime, it has a robust strategy which is intelligence-led, collaborative and high-tech. If there are 50 potential illegal sites in this part of southeast England, it suggests there are thousands across the UK.
There are large illegal waste sites operating, causing pollution, contamination of the environment.
Anna Willits is an environmental criminal defence lawyer who's worked in the waste industry for over 20 years.
Waste has built up over a number of years, completely uncontrolled, deposited regularly by waste criminals, no permits, no controls in place, and that is I'd say the sharp end of waste crime. It is a big problem. It's not just a fridge in a ditch here and there. And it seems to me that as fast as these sites are closed down by the regulator, the criminals seem to be ahead of the game, usually by 1 step or 2 steps, and these sites appear again with alarming regularity. The sharp end of waste crime does go hand in hand with a lot of other criminal activity, including firearms, drug offences, child trafficking and modern slavery. And it's often said that the waste sites where it's easy to make a quick buck are just the tip of the iceberg.
Across the UK, waste crime is organised and growing. The experts we've spoken to say it's not an issue of regulation, it's enforcing the rules we already have. All the major political parties are promising to act. In the meantime, the crooks are making more money and getting away with it.
It's organised crime. 60 of the top organised crime groups in the UK are involved in this fraud. Like any organised criminal group, they'll go where they can make easy money. And for them, this is easy money. There's no deterrent at all because there's very little enforcement of it. And this is not a victimless crime. This is fueling crime in other areas in our community and also potentially ruining our environment. And there's a time bomb waiting on some of these sites which will have to be picked up by the taxpayer and could lead to damaging the health of local people.
We had a loose end to tie up. A tracker we'd hidden in a mattress and given to a waste company had activated.
So, when I looked before, it was sort of parked up around here.
The mattress was on the move.
Should we go take a look?
Yeah, we should. On the left, down here. Of course, the guy could still be with it.
It seemed somewhere in the Thames, one more waste crime was being added to our fly tipping statistics.
It's now coming up like it's there. If we would just got here 5 minutes earlier, we might have seen it float a little way down.